English is so weird. I mean it really is. Not just in comparison with other European languages, but in comparison with every other language in the world. Allow me to explain. Here are 10 ways in which English is weird. Way number 1, weird noises. To speak English is to make more different noises than most languages. There are 44 distinct sounds in English, what linguists call phonemes, things like sh and and l. 44, give or take, depending on your dialect. But researchers reckon the average number of sounds across the world's languages is somewhere between 25 and 30, meaning English has a good 50% more noises than the average. A good chunk of that can be explained by the number of vowel sounds in English.
There are loads of them. Again, the precise number depends on your dialect.
For example, if I say hot, I'm using a vowel sound, that oh, that a lot of American viewers will never use, unless they're trying to put on a British accent. With that aside, English speakers are all using around a dozen vowel sounds, whereas speakers of other languages, to the best of our knowledge, average out at around 5 or 6. Half as many. Latin had fewer than English, that's why the Roman alphabet has left us with an utterly insufficient supply of vowel letters, hence we have to use them in combination. But which are the weirdest sounds in English? Well, one of them is that one, the in that, or in the, or in this, or in breathe. And the other one is the similar but different th sound in 3 and thirsty. I assure you these are different sounds. Just try it. The, 3. The difference is that with the you're using your vocal cords, but with the th in 3, you're not. Just try it. The, 3. Anyway, those TH sounds only occur in around 1 in 10 languages around the world, making English pretty darn special for having them. There's another weird thing about English noises too, and it's that ng that we just heard at the end of the word thing. It's not particularly bizarre to have that ng sound, lots of languages do, but what's bizarre about English's use of it is that we allow it at the end of words like thing or ringing or singing. You can have it in the middle too.
But you cannot have it at the start.
And that is weird. Mandarin does it. But that doesn't mean it's not weird. On to weird thing number 2. Odd questions. Have you noticed the way we switch words around when we're formulating a question? For example, have you noticed is a question, but you have noticed is a statement. To turn a statement into a question, we flip the subject and the verb. The cat is hungry. Statement. Is the cat hungry? Question. A question to which the answer is always yes. And this, my friend, is weird. Now, you're perhaps thinking, no, it isn't, Rob, because French does it, and German does it, and Swedish does it, and Czech does it. That is true, but we just need to broaden our horizons a little bit here, because outside of Europe, almost no one else does. Researchers using data from the World Atlas of Language Structures, a massive database of information about many, although not all, of the world's languages, found that only 1.4% of those languages did the word switching around thing to formulate yes and no questions. And almost all of those languages were in Europe. We've picked up the habit from each other. English is also weird in what it doesn't do to form questions, because according to that database, the majority of languages use a specific word to show that something is a question. It's called a question participle. For example, Japanese turns a statement into a question by adding a ka to the sentence, like a sort of verbal question mark. And that's something we don't do, eh? Oh, hold on. The second most common way to formulate a question is to just say the statement, but change your intonation. But again, this is something that English speakers also kind of do. For example, you're still hungry, or you haven't clicked subscribe yet. Please do. Perhaps another weird thing about English is that you can do just about any of these things. Anyway, on to weird thing about English number 3, our meaningless do. We use the word do in a lot of weird ways. English has something called the meaningless do, or dummy do, and is the do that appears in questions like, do you like coffee? In negative statements like, I do not like matcha. I'm sorry, I've tried, but I just don't. And also for emphasis in sentences like, I do prefer Yorkshire tea to Thai fu. I'm not just saying that to fit in. In all of these constructions, the do that is there isn't really doing anything. There's no reason for the verb to be there or for that verb to be do. It isn't carrying any meaning at all. But to give a negative statement in this way, for example, we need it. Other languages do not do this. They're more likely to go for like you coffee or I like matcha not. They don't draft in this dummy do. The meaningless do makes English very weird. No other Germanic language does it. In fact, it's thought that of all of the languages in the entire world, only English and the Celtic languages do anything like it. So do you see how special it is? Weird thing about English, number 4, phrasal verbs. Ah yes, phrasal verbs, a term that strikes terror into the heart of many English language learners. I like to think of them as our revenge for everyone else's grammatical gender. More on that later. Phrasal verbs are things like to look at or to shut down. It's where to describe an action you need not only a verb, but also an extra word, a preposition like up or off or on or at. And English is just full of them. That's fine if you've been speaking English for your whole life, but if you're learning it as, say, an adult, it is a nightmare. It's easy enough to know what to look is, but how are you supposed to remember that to look up something is to research it, or to look out is to watch your back, or to look down on is to patronize? And not always. You could also just be looking up, or looking out, or looking down. And sometimes the components of the phrasal verb can bear no relation at all to their meaning. How are you supposed to guess what give up means when there's no obvious giving or ascending taking place? So what do other languages do? Well, German and Dutch are secretly doing the same as us. They're just working the preposition into the verb. Their words for to give up basically mean to upgive. But you won't come across many phrasal verbs in French. That's why we thankfully often have a French-derived alternative if we're really struggling. We can say terminate instead of end up, or recline instead of lie back, or lie all the way down, if you like. Anyway, English's over-reliance on phrasal verbs, trust me, it's weird. Now, one of the ways you can really get to appreciate the weirdness of English is by learning another language. And if you want to embark on your own language learning journey, allow me to recommend to you Babbel, who sponsored this video. Babbel is one of the top language learning apps in the world. Its intuitive lessons help you learn a language through real-life conversations.
God morgon, Maria.
I've been using it to learn a little bit of Swedish because I can't speak any of the Scandinavian languages, but they've had such a big influence on English down the centuries, thanks Viking invaders. Plus, Sweden is a wonderful place to visit. With Babbel, you can set yourself a goal and it'll give you all the tools to meet it. Live teaching sessions, podcasts, games, flashcards, and of course, lessons you can do whenever and wherever you want.
Jag mår bra, tack.
Jag mår bra, tack.
Är du, Robert?
That word is actually where the English word are comes from. The Vikings brought it over.
I found I can make fast progress with Babbel because you're very quickly learning sentences that you can actually use. It teaches you real-world conversations. So click the link in the description or scan this QR code and get 60% off, as well as access to Babbel's amazing discount on their lifetime subscription for Memorial Day. Tack så mycket. Thank you very much. Okay, our next weird thing about English. Where are the genders? In Spanish, a book is masculine, but the table it might be sitting on is feminine. Here in Germany, the locals would say that my hand is feminine, doesn't look it, but my finger is masculine, and my face is neuter. And you need to know these things to be able to speak Spanish or German properly, because if you don't, you won't know which of their versions of the word the to use, or which version of the word, I don't know, green to use. This is grammatical gender, and English just doesn't bother with it, which is weird. Because almost every other Indo-European language does. So every Romance, every Germanic, every Slavic, every Celtic language, as does Sanskrit and ancient Greek did. They all apportion a gender, either one of two or one of three, to every noun. But English just doesn't. We have gendered pronouns, sure, but that's it. Now, if I was making this video around 1500 years ago, I'd have to leave this section out. I'd have to come up with another weird thing, because Old English did apportion genders to nouns like its Germanic siblings. It had three genders, just like modern German does: masculine, feminine, and neuter, and also three versions of the to use, a different one for each gender, and none of which, by the way, was the. It was a mess, to be honest. Man was masculine, but so was woman, and wife was neuter. And the fact it was such a nightmare may well be part of the reason we no longer have this grammatical gender system. We don't know for certain why it went away, but it seems to have happened around the time that the Vikings arrived in Britain. The Danish invaders, when they'd finished pillaging, married themselves off with the local women, and the simpler gender system of their language, Old Norse, seems to have had an influence on the Old English of their spouses. Another probable factor in grammatical gender's disappearance is the fact that in Middle English, the different word endings that you need to make grammatical gender work, really, started to get messed up. For example, Middle English speakers developed a habit of making every vowel at the end of a word just sound like an which was a problem when you sometimes need to be able to differentiate between a word ending with an a or a word ending with an e. So this might also have made the grammatical gender system unsustainable. And good riddance. I cannot think of a single situation where we'd be better off with grammatical gender than we are without it. If you can, stick it in the comments. But to my mind, having no grammatical gender is good, but also weird. Afrikaans, Armenian, Persian, and a handful of other Indo-European languages are also weird too. Okay, weird thing about English number 6, peculiar pronouns. Pronouns got an honourable mention in the last section, but let's take a closer look at them, because in English, they're weirder than you might think. First of all, the way we use them is, in comparison with the rest of the world's languages, strange. We are peculiarly reliant on them. In fact, we can't do without them. If I just write like chocolate, you have no idea what I'm getting at. Do I mean I like chocolate? You like chocolate? They like chocolate? We like chocolate? You don't know because I didn't use a pronoun. I, you, or whatever. In sentences like that, the pronoun is obligatory in English, and that is weird. Believe it or not, it's thought that obligatory pronouns like that are only found in around 1/10 of the world's languages. This might surprise you because it just so happens that many of the other ones that have them are fellow European languages. But also on our doorstep are languages that don't. In Spanish or Italian, the pronouns aren't obligatory. There's enough information in the form of the verb that you've chosen to tell the listener or reader who or what is doing the action. But because English doesn't have a different version of a verb for every pronoun, you say swim, whether it's I swim, you swim, or they swim, we need the pronouns. And given there's only around a 1 in 10 chance of any other language having these obligatory pronouns, that makes it weird. Oh, and also the fact that we only have one version of you is odd too. We don't have a formal and informal one or an extra plural one. Y'all doesn't count, it's a contraction, and also most English speakers don't use it. We used to have all of those versions of you though, but not anymore, and that, well, yeah, it's a bit odd. Okay, weird thing number 7, silly spelling. Why did I wait all the way until number 7 to get to this one? English spelling is a monstrosity. Different letters make different sounds in different places. We have silent letters, and letters have to be used in combinations that don't appear to make a lot of sense. English spelling is particularly, weirdly, bad. I don't know of another language that has tried to create a written form that represents the sounds of that language and failed so spectacularly. I touched on one of the reasons why already. We are using an alphabet that was designed for a different language. And English has many more sounds than the Latin that the Roman alphabet was originally used for. I also recently did a video about English's great vowel shift, which caused the pronunciation of English words to change significantly just as we were trying to nail down their spellings, meaning the spellings were soon, for want of a better term, out of date. English spelling has also suffered from deliberate interference, with silly scholars adding in silent letters to try to better reflect a word's usually Latin roots. And a descending laziness has meant we've stopped pronouncing some letters that we used to. Plus, there's also the fact that we've borrowed a lot of words that were designed for different languages, meaning they don't quite match up with how we'd have spelt them. Anyway, all of this adds up to a pell-mell of bad spellings. Another thing that makes English weird. And here comes another at number 8. It's getting tense. Okay, let's talk tenses. And here I can mention something for which English is unique. So far as linguists have researched it, English's present tense is like no other, because English is the only language in the whole world where the present tense only requires you to alter the third person singular form for regular verbs. Just let me explain. So take the verb smell. It stays the same in the present tense for I, you, we, and they, but it changes for he and she and it, and only for he and she and it. And that feature of the English present tense is unique, so far as we know. English also has some other bizarre tense stuff going on. Staying in the present, our so-called present progressive tense is a bit odd. You know, the way we use the verb to be plus another verb with ing on the end of it. For example, I am reading a book means that the reading is an ongoing process. This would be considered in many languages an unnecessary faff. Why not just say, I read book? Why all the extra bells and whistles? I personally think we're better off with it. I am standing up for it. And will continue to. But I won't necessarily stick up for this next one. Have you ever noticed English doesn't actually have a future tense? To talk about the future, we have to find clunky ways around this using the present tense. I am going to do it. I am doing it tomorrow. Even when we say I will do something, we're invoking the present form of an old word meaning to want. Not having a future tense isn't weird as such. Some languages manage without having any tenses at all. They just say when something is going to happen. But having so many different ways to get around not having a future tense is definitely, well, a bit weird. It's time for number 9. Our next weird aspect of English is the ah. Okay, I've tried to be a little bit clever there, because what this section is about is the words the and ah, and also an. These are known as articles. The is what's called a definite article. You use it when you want to be specific about the chair or the gorilla. If you want to talk about just any old gorilla, you use the indefinite article, which in English is a or an if the word starts with a vowel sound. Now, English articles could be weirder, much weirder. I give you German. But the fact that English has both a definite article and these indefinite articles is surprisingly odd. It's not at all common to have an indefinite article outside of the Indo-European languages, and even among those is by no means a given. Celtic languages like Irish and Welsh have no equivalents of a or an, nor do Slavic languages. But the question is, do we need them? If you have a definite article for when you're being specific, do you need to have another article for when you're not being? Can't you just have no article at all? And in fact, do you even need a definite article either? Would you genuinely be confused if a non-native English speaker said something to you along the lines of, I don't know, I want a cup of tea? I guess they're trying to fit in. The fact they've missed off the or a doesn't really matter, does it? You can usually tell from context whether they're asking for any cup of tea or a specific one. So yeah, the fact English has definite and indefinite articles is a bit weird. Do we need indefinite article? Maybe not. Okay, we're there. Weird thing about English number 10. And for this one, I want your help. I think our 10th weird thing about English should be about what the language doesn't have rather than what it does. Because there are concepts that don't exist in English that do in other languages. For example, English doesn't have a gender non-specific word for a parent's sibling. To talk about them generally, we'd have to say aunts and uncles. That seems to me like a niche that needs filling. Maybe we could use oncles. Uncles. Ankles? I don't know. Come up with a better one. We also don't have separate words for our mother's parents and our father's parents like some languages do. We don't have a word for the day after tomorrow or the day before yesterday like some languages do. And we don't have a word to negate a negative statement like lots of other languages do. If you say to me, "Rob, you didn't take the bins out again," I can't challenge that outrageous claim with a single word. If I say no, it's ambiguous. Do I mean no, I did, or no, I didn't? Ditto with yes. Whereas in German, the word doch and in French, the word si are reserved for just this situation, to disagree with the sentence. Why don't we have something like that? So help me out here. What other weird gaps are there in the English language? What don't we have words for that many other languages do? Let me know in the comments. If you've enjoyed this romp through the wonderful weirdness of English, may I ask two things of you? One, please subscribe to this channel. And two, watch this video next. And I do hope I will be seeing you over there. I'm gonna go.